Hey everybody, happy Wednesday. I hope everybody, wherever you live, you are staying warm and dry. We've had a few days of rain up here and I don't think we're finished with it yet. So, got some soup I'm planning for dinner. We're just trying to stay warm and dry. So, anyway, I hope you're enjoying getting ready for holidays. And I promised a detour from talking about my shoulder, so I've got something else to share with you. And honestly, this topic came on my heart this week because of a myth that always kind of keeps getting talked about whenever people talk about cooking, and it's holiday time. And so, of course, we're making more. We might be cooking more than we usually do, trying different recipes or going different places and enjoying food with at other gatherings. And this is something I have talked about before, but it was a really long time ago. So maybe you might have missed it. And it really is important enough that we need to talk about it again. And I have a blog post about it. So I'll link the blog down in the comments if you want to just click on that and have it handy, because a common misconception when it comes to cooking and using alcohol in cooking. And we hear it all over, right? The alcohol cooks off. The alcohol cooks off. I hate to be the bearer of bad news if you're hoping that the alcohol is going to cook off, but the truth is some of the alcohol will cook off, but not all of it. That's a big deal. It might not be a big deal for me. It might not be a big deal for you, but it can be a very big deal for people who are sensitive to alcohol or for people who are in a recovery program. Right, like sometimes we make sauces, like we might put red wine in some spaghetti sauce. We might do something like beer in the cheese dip, like do the fondue thing. Sometimes we bake, like rum cake, whatever, right? If we've got alcohol in the food or in the sauce, some of it's going to cook off. So if you bring something, I've got some great information that I've just found online from Googling. If you bring something to the point of boiling, so let's just for an example, say red wine in some marinara sauce. You bring that to a boil, to the point of boiling. After 15 minutes, the approximate amount of alcohol that remains is 40%. So 15-minute rolling boil, 40% remains. After 30 minutes, 35% remains. After an hour, 25% remains. After 2 hours, about 10% remains. And after 2.5 hours, you've still got about 5% of that alcohol remaining. Now, we look at that in the scope of like general terms, right? And you go, well, can my kid eat that food? Yeah, sure. A lot of times, sure, 5%, whatever. People make their own decisions, right? It would be fine for me, right? I'm not that sensitive to that. I'm not, in a recovery program, that would be okay for me. But for other people, like my husband, who has a very strong reaction to very tiny amounts of alcohol, that would be dangerous for him to consume. Other people, I talked to somebody not too long ago who didn't know that when she ordered Cherry's Jubilee in a restaurant and they flambe that, sometimes they just set that thing on fire, right? Cherry's Jubilee or Baked Alaska or something like that. When they flambe that with the flame, they do that with alcohol. And still, they just flame it, and about 75% of the alcohol is still in that when you go to eat it. Now, if you don't want to consume alcohol for whatever reason, right? That could be a recovery program. That could be religious reasons. For whatever, first of all, as the consumer, you need to be aware of what may or may not have alcohol in it and know to ask the right questions. But for those of us who have a loved one in a recovery program, or we might have friends or family coming over for holiday gatherings, my public service announcement is this. I'm not saying don't ever cook with alcohol. You do you, right? You've got your favorite recipes and you know your family and friends, but know who you might want to just let them know that I made that sauce with wine, or if there's something that was cooked or made with alcohol, please let your people know so that they can make an informed decision. It is really tough to go different places and eat food at different gatherings and not know how things were prepared or not know what might be safe for my family to consume. So that's my short little public service message for today. I want to shine a light on a myth, because knowing what I know, when people say that myth, the alcohol cooks off, some of it does. But if you have people who need 0%, right? 1% is not okay. 5% is not okay. So let's just not buy into that myth of we're going from alcohol to 0%. We're not. Our home is alcohol free. This is kind of a side note, but since we're talking about it, I'll go ahead and share. Our home is alcohol free to the point that cough syrup, mouthwash, nothing that comes into our home has any percent of alcohol. I read every label, and even the vanilla extract that I bake with, I get alcohol free. And I know, right? I'm putting 1 teaspoon in a big pile of chocolate chip cookie dough, but still, we just, right? Like, that's our boundary. Just nothing comes in the house. That way, accidents don't happen. Nothing gets like, oh, I didn't know what that was, or, whatever, because that's what works for our family. But again, just be aware. When I hear people say the alcohol cooks off, I'm that person that's going to have to stand on the soapbox and do the education piece and go, it's not true, just so you know. All right. Enjoy your holidays. Enjoy your food. Learn how to do different swaps, right? I swap white wine for chicken broth and stuff. And sometimes I'll look at a recipe, because I Google a lot of recipes and I look at different stuff. I was just trying to make an Italian osso buco with beef shanks a few weeks ago, and I was looking at recipe after recipe that had red wine in the sauce. And sometimes, like, that's the base of the sauce. I can't swap that. So I'll just look for a different recipe. So sometimes I swap stuff. Sometimes I just pass a recipe and go, you know what? Nah, I'll just make something else. Anyway, I hope if you learned something new, I hope so. I hope that just shined a light. Again, if you know and love people who are in a recovery program, please be mindful. Make sure you inform them. And I'm going to put my blog post down in the comments. All right. You guys have an awesome holiday, and I'm always happy to share. I love talking about food. If I can share a recipe with you or a healthy swap or something, let me know. Have an awesome Wednesday.